Hi, we will continue the demo, but this time instead of hard coding the values like this, rather than using some default values like 2.3, 4.5, let's try to read this from user. So I wanted to develop the program such that it takes the two numbers from user and perform the operation. So for that, okay, we'll quickly create a new class under day two. Let's call this as data type demo 2, yeah, something like this, yeah. Now I need the main function. Yeah, so main is the entry point for all your programs. So we need to have main function. Now all we need is like let me declare first the result, etc. So these variables are declared. Now instead of assigning the value, for example, something like this, I wanted this value to be taken on during the runtime from user. So how to do this? Yeah. So for this we have a mechanism in Java. In fact, different ways in Java to read the input from source. The source could be basically your keyboard, or the source could be the file, etc. Yeah. So for that we have a ready-made class called scanner. So the moment I type scanner, you can see the ID is helping me. But if you're using Notepad, you just need to ensure you type it completely. But this is a ready-made class available, ready-made library class which is available. And remember, all the class names starts with uppercase. So this is scanner, which is with S capital. Yeah, and this particular scanner is available in some library, and the libraries are neatly organized. Even in future, all our code we are going to neatly organized in some certain folder structure. Yeah, so in this case the library scanner is organized in a folder structure, or in Java world we call it as package structure. So it is nicely packaged in a folder called java.util. So if I wanted to use this, we have to actually import this particular package into our program so that that particular library is made available. So how can I do this? For example, the moment I type scanner and enter here in IDE, you can see there will be an import statement that comes here basically in the program automatically. Yeah. So it is saying import java.util.scanner class. So what it means is now that scanner class is made available in my program and I can start using it. So the class is made available as if like I defined it. Now I can use it for my own purpose. Yeah. If you're using or if you're developing this program on a notepad, you have to explicitly type this import. Import is the keyword. Yeah, just like in C++ programming, you might have used hash include, right? Same way, this is import. And what to import? Import java.util.scanner class. Yeah, and in some cases you might have seen they will simply say import everything. If I simply say java.util.star, it says import everything in that package. There could be more than one particular class in that particular package. So everything will be imported and made available. But in our case, okay, so we are just importing the scanner class. Yeah. So all we need, for now, rather than going in deep, you just understand, okay, I needed to use a scanner class to input the data from keyboard. So for that, we declare a variable, just the way I declared a variable like integer a, right? Same way, I'm declaring a variable of type scanner. Yeah, which is, let me call it as in, because that is an input for me. Yeah, then I'm going to actually assign a value. What value? New, which is don't worry about what is this new, etc. right now, but just try to use it as it is. But when we start actually working with object oriented concepts, classes and objects, that we will know. Yeah, so new is basically an operator in Java which will create a new object. So what we're trying to say is create a new object of scanner and open and close. Yeah, and in this I wanted to say system.in. So what it really means is I wanted to create an object of scanner type using new, a new object of scanner type, but then it has to be connected to a system.in. System.in represents our console input. Yeah, and remember, system is again another class name. Yeah, so this is available in java.lang. So that's why we're not importing anything. By default, java.lang is imported automatically. Yeah, so there is only one package which is imported automatically. So whenever we use system.out, system.in, they were available in that package actually, and it is available by default. But anything other than java.lang, you have to explicitly import it. Yeah. So now what we're trying to say is I wanted a new object of scanner which is connected to system.in. So just imagine like, okay, from your console, we are creating a pipe. Whatever you type in the console, that will be available into your program. So your program and your console where user can input the numbers, right? Both are now connected through this pipe, you can imagine. Yeah. Now I can write it this way, or this in, and in is declared here the way sometimes like integer a, and then we print, we type a equal to 10. Okay, I can take this whole thing. Yeah, and rather simply assign it here itself. So this is how we normally do it. Yeah. So rather than just repeating. So what we're trying to say is I'm creating a variable in which is of type scanner. Basically, rather than calling it as variable now, it is an object. Yeah. So I'm creating an object of scanner which is connected to system.in. Yeah. Now from this in I can start reading the value. Okay, now in our case what we are going to read, I'm going to read an integer value because my variables a and b are integers, right? So I can read integer values. So for that there is a ready-made method available which is next int. And remember, as I said, Java uses camel case. So and all the method names are lowercase in Java. All method is function. All function names like main. Yeah, so main is a function, so all function names are in lowercase. But if there is two different words which are concatenated, that letter which gets concatenated is capital. So next int. So what we're trying to say is I wanted to read integer value. Yeah, so I wanted to read this integer value from in is my scanner object which is connected to console. And once I read it, where will I put it? I will put it in a. So rather than just typing a equal to 13 something like this, what we're saying is I wanted to read it from keyboard. Similarly, b also I wanted to read it. So next int. Okay. Now rest is same thing, a plus b. Yeah, and now simply type okay a plus b plus equal to plus result. Now let's try to run this. Okay, now you can see what happened is now system is waiting for me to input the numbers. Yeah, so I can say 10 and again 20. Now it is saying 10 plus 20 equal to 30. Okay, but what happened is basically it was waiting for me to enter the number, but I couldn't figure out or I couldn't realize that it is waiting. So rather when you're actually reading it here, it makes actually sense to print a message saying enter two numbers, something like this. So now you can see when I run this, yeah, it will tell me explicitly that it is waiting for two numbers. Now I can give two numbers. Yeah, so similarly, I will rerun it again. And whenever you are rerunning it, you can always click it here, which will run the same program again. I can give it this way also to input. Yeah, and I can give it this way also. Yeah, so anything will work. So next int is basically going to read two numbers. Suppose if these are not next int and I wanted to read it as float, for example, if I make these as float variables, yeah. So the moment I made these as float variables, right, my need is what? So my need is actually to read floating point numbers. Okay, so suppose if I'm not changing this and if I'm just executing it, what happens you can see. Yeah, enter two numbers. I'll say 10 20. Yeah, it has become 10.0 and 20.0 and 30.0. Yeah, but suppose if I actually run it without changing it and say 10.2 is my first number. Yeah, and then immediately it caused a problem saying that something went wrong. Okay, what is that went wrong? Input mismatch exception. So there is a concept in Java, we call it as exception. See, earlier in our program I've seen errors, like if I make a mistake, for example, if I omit semicolon or something, right, compiler gave me an error saying you made a mistake, it is grammatically wrong. Yeah, and that is what we call it as error. Yeah, in Java there is a possibility that you don't have error in your program, everything is very good, like in this current program there are no compilation errors. But then when I'm running it, right, there is a logical mistake. What is the logical mistake? I'm trying to read this as an integer number, right? So I'm explaining JVM that read it as a number. Yeah, but then what is that I have given input? I have given input as a basically a floating point number. Now the problem that happened in the earlier program or in the earlier case when I gave only 10, right, it read it. Yeah, and then made it as 10.0. So 10 to 10.0 there is no loss. But here if I have given the number as 10.2 and my program has a logical error which says read it as an integer, now JVM has, or in fact Java in general has a problem. What is the problem? You've given me this number 10.2, but you're asking me to read it as 10. Yeah. Then what happens? There is a data loss that happens, right? Your point 2 cannot be read. Yeah, that is a data loss. So that's why it raised a runtime error. which is what we call it as exception in Java. So it says you are giving me, or you are asking me to actually, or you are giving instruction to read integer, but then you have given in runtime a decimal number. That's why it is saying Java mismatch exception, and it couldn't take it further because it doesn't know what to do. Yeah. Now the mistake need to be rectified. So how? There are two ways I can rectify this. One is I can force it to read integer only, even if it is 10.2. I will ask it to ignore 10.2, that decimal part, and only take 10. Yeah, that is one way of doing it. Or the correct way, or in our case, whatever we need is, okay, correct way of doing it is use a different method, which is essentially reads float. So there is a method called next float. Similar to next int, we have next float. So we will use next float function. Yeah. So now run it. Yeah. Same 10.2. Yeah. And 23.5, for example, enter. It worked. So now there is no confusion. There is no runtime error or exception, because essentially whatever we are giving and whatever we are expecting here, both are same. So Java has a feature called exception. If something go wrong during execution, an exception will be raised. Yeah. Now, of course, ideally our program should not terminate the way it happened last time, right? With some exception message, red color message that came out. For that, we have to have some mechanism called exception handling that we will see it later. Yeah. But for now, you just need to remember one thing, that is there are different methods available in this ready-made class scanner, which you can use it depending upon the type of data that you're using. So if I'm using, for example, double, right, as my variable, of course, you look for a method which is next double. Yeah. So like that, you just need to be careful, like what exactly you're using, and the data type should ideally match. So this is how we actually get the data from system. Yeah. So for example, now like I'm taking variable A, I'm taking variable B, I'm adding these two things and printing the result. Yeah. So let's do another example where we will simply write a program to do a simple interest calculation. Yeah. So let me add a new class. I will call this as simple interest calculator. Yeah, simple interest calc. Yeah, something like this. Main function. So all I need is basically principal amount, time, and rate of interest, and then a variable to store the actual interest. Yeah, and time can be floating point, principal can be floating point, rate can be floating point numbers, right? Rate can be 6.2, 7.5, something like this, and interest calculated would be floating point. So for that, I will simply use float. Yeah, and start defining the or declaring the variables. One is principal amount, principal amount. Yeah, and another one is time, and what else? The rate of interest. If you want, you can call it as rate of interest. Okay, and then the result that we are going to use, basically simple interest, that is going to be computed. Yeah. So now all we need is basically, let me fix the spelling error here. Yeah. Yeah. So all we need is read the principal amount, time, and rate of interest, and then compute the simple interest. Yeah. So for that, again, I'll go with this scanner, and I'll call this as scanner. And remember, Java is a case sensitive, so you need to be careful about uppercase, lowercase, etc. Yeah. So I created the object, and now I'll start reading. So before reading, I'll preferably print a message. Enter principal. Enter principal amount. Yeah. Don't worry about spelling mistakes, etc. right now. Yeah. And now I need to read it. So how will I read it? Next float. Where is next float? Okay. Start typing it. Yeah. So next float, and this you're going to save it in your principal variable, right? Principal amount variable. Yeah. Similarly, I need other two input also. So I'll simply copy it for time being. Yeah. And change it, enter time. Yeah. And now the next one, which is the time, which I'm going to hold it in my time variable. Yeah. Similarly, what is that next one? The rate of interest, right? Enter rate of interest. Yeah. And you may be wondering why I have the spaces and everything here allowed. Yeah. These are just messages that are going to be printed, right? So we need not worry about it. Whereas variable names, etc., should not have the spaces. So this I will change it to rate of interest. So now I have all the three input available. So what is the next thing I need to do? Simple interest equal to, what is that? PTR by 100. Yeah. So principal amount principal amount into, in Java world or in any other programming language, into is this symbol, yeah, principal amount time, yeah, into rate of interest divided by 100. Yeah. Now let's print the message. Like for example, interest earned is, we just wanted to print it with some space. So that is simple interest. Yeah. So let me run this program. Principal amount for 100 rupees for 1 year with, let's say, 7.2 rate of interest. Interest earned is 86.4 rupees. Is it for 100 rupees? That's quite too much. Where exactly? Let me run this 100. 12 years. Okay, let me make it 1 year, and rate of interest is this. Yeah. So basically nothing happened. Instead of 1 year, I've given 12 years. So it actually computed. That's fine. So it's absolutely fine. Our program is fine. So let rerun it again. Um, enter the principal amount, 1,000 rupees. Yeah, and for 1 year with 10%. Yeah, it's 100 rupees. So this is how we can actually do quick programs reading from console. Yeah. So let's find out, let's do little more complicated example in the